Last week, I talked about John Cena retiring from WWE next year. He came out last weekend of Money in the Bank and made the announcement that 2025 is going to be his final year in the ring. And I threw out some ideas and some names of potential opponents for him before he wraps up. One name that I mentioned was CM Punk. And I said that I would book one last John Cena CM Punk match to headline the first Raw on Netflix in January. I didn't get into all of the specifics of what I would do for Cena that year, which I did on Tuesday Night Titan. So I wanted to mention it here too and just expand on it a little bit more because it is a topic of conversation. People are trying to fantasy book the final year of John Cena. Now, there's been some debate about whether Cena really is the greatest of all time. That's the tagline that WWE has given him. They've been marketing him that way for now a number of years. That was a Vince McMahon thing. And that's really all it is. It's a way for them to market him. Everybody is going to have a different answer as to the question. Is he the GOAT? Cena himself has said that he thinks Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time. I do not believe Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time. Will Roman Reigns be the greatest of all time? I don't know. He's not done yet. I can't say. I love Bret Hart, but, Bret's my GOAT in terms of matches, but he didn't do the kind of business that the all-time greats did. So by those metrics, he wouldn't be the GOAT. Neither would Shawn Michaels, unless you're just looking at pure talent. If that's your primary metric, that opens the conversation up, to a lot of people like Bret and Shawn and Kurt Angle. You could expand that out beyond just WWE, and you've got Ric Flair and Terry Funk and a bunch of others. But the two most important figures, talent-wise, in WWE in the last 40 years are Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Rock would be up there right behind them. Cena had the longevity over all of them, so did The Undertaker. But I can't put them ahead of Hogan and Austin. I just can't. I can't put Undertaker ahead of them. I can't put Cena ahead of them. Were it not for those two exploding in popularity when they did and getting pushed when they did, there may not be a WWE right now. And if there was, it would not be nearly as big as it is, making billions of dollars every single year. That does not take away from the success that John Cena has had. You could say that Vince McMahon relied too heavily on him for too long, at the expense of creating new stars on his level. That's absolutely true. That is absolutely a valid argument to make. But where would they have been without John Cena? Probably not in a good place. That's exactly why he, being Vince, relied on Cena as his top guy for so long. That and Cena went along with whatever they wanted him to do. He wasn't known to be a pest. He wasn't known to be a pain in the ass and always arguing decisions and saying no. He wasn't known to be a politician like you hear stories about certain guys. Now, I'm not saying he never did politic. The JTG story is a classic about him using the words loyalty and respect in an interview once with the WWE magazine and instantly realizing, oh shit, that probably wasn't a good idea. And JTG is begging the editor, please leave that part out. So I think he may have been talking about his partner. He may have been talking about Shad. Loyalty and respect was part of what Cena was calling himself at the time. So he's begging the editor, please leave that part out. And they said, oh yeah, sure, we'll leave that out. And of course they published it anyway. And so this was around the time JTG was about to finally get his own shades on WWE Shop. And it was his first real piece of merch. And he was a big Bret Hart fan growing up, so he wanted to have glasses like Bret did. And he claims in his book that one day Cena corners him in the men's room and says, hey, those new shades that you had coming out? Yeah, not anymore. Now we're even. Now we're even, Steven. And JTG never did get those shades made. But I remember hearing that for the first time, and I'm like, what kind of maniac reacts that way? Yeah, but for every story like that, you've got a story like Tyrus, talking about how when he was at WrestleMania 28, and it looked like his match was about to be cut for time. This was in Miami. That was the night Cena wrestled Rock for the first time, right? Once in a lifetime, which turned out to be twice in a lifetime. So, huge main event coming up. Cena's at Gorilla, and Funkasaurus is at Gorilla, and Cena is hearing this, and he leans over and he tells him, he goes, I've got to go to the bathroom. What do you think? 6 minutes? 8 minutes? And Tyrus picked up on what he was doing. He's like, yeah, 6 minutes ought to be good. And Cena disappeared. They couldn't find him. If you can't find him, you can't go to the next match, right? I mean, he's about to go out there for this big main event, and nobody could find him. So what they did was they sent the Funkasaurus out there to do a dancing bit on stage. So at least he was able to get his WrestleMania moment. So there's a lot of stories like that, mostly good stories, but there's some weird ones too. Cena's he's a weird guy. But Cena was a draw for them last year when he came back for a couple of months during the Hollywood writer's strike. And this retirement tour is going to do big business for them. It's actually genius on WWE's part, because every single show that John Cena is going to be on, and he's claimed that, he's going to be doing anywhere from 30 to 40 dates, TV and PLEs and live events, not every live event, but, enough of them where you can get 40 dates out of this guy. He hasn't been full-time or even part-time in many, many years. He's got a full-fledged career for himself in TV and movies right now. So it's a big thing for WWE to get Cena back for an entire year like that. Every single show that he is on is going to be a sellout or a near sellout. You wonder how much longer could this hot streak that WWE is on continue for, because they're packing in the buildings and they're selling out, maybe not every week, but a lot of weeks. Now you add the added, attraction of John Cena. This is his final match in Chicago. This is his final match in New York. This is his final match everywhere. Is going to be his final match. Last time to come see John Cena live in the ring. You don't think they're going to sell those shows out? Of course they are. WrestleMania in Las Vegas was going to be huge anyway, but now they can promote the fact that John Cena is going to be working his last ever WrestleMania match. Every PLE match that he does is going to be his last ever. Last Royal Rumble, last Elimination Chamber. The question is, what story or stories do you tell with him? John Cena has not won a televised singles match since Super Showdown in 2018 against Triple H. That means coming into 2025, when he comes back in January and we see him, he will be on a losing streak of 7 years in singles matches. You can break a mirror and have bad luck for that long, and it ends. And that's how long John Cena has gone winless by the time he comes back in singles matches. 7 years. I would not have him come back and just win in his first match back. You instantly kill the story of Cena trying to shake off the bad luck and get back in the win column. Why would you do that? John Cena versus CM Punk. If you do that on the first Raw on Netflix, like I've suggested, Punk should win. Keep the losing streak going. He enters the Royal Rumble with the idea that he's going to try to win the Royal Rumble one more time. He's already won it twice. And he's going to try to kickstart his path to title number 17, which is the other story they need to tell with him. It's the chase for 17. Try to set the all-time WWE record. Nobody has ever won more world titles in this company than John Cena already. Won 16 of them. But because of the whole Ric Flair thing, 17 would trump Flair and would set the record. So I would have him in the Royal Rumble match, and he should fail. So then he has to qualify for the Elimination Chamber. And guess what? He loses there too. And then we get to WrestleMania. Now, we already know it's going to be his last WrestleMania, but he says, let's say, going into it, if I can't win at WrestleMania, I know I've been on this horrible, just bad luck streak. I don't know if I've got it anymore. If I can't win at WrestleMania, I don't deserve to be here anymore. I don't deserve to have this retirement tour for the rest of the year. So if I lose at WrestleMania, then WrestleMania will be my final match. The retirement tour ends early. And then at WrestleMania, he finally wins. And that is when the real chase for 17 begins. And he starts stringing together some big wins against people like AJ Styles, who I would love to see him back in the ring with. Cena and Sheamus one more time. Cena and Logan Paul for the first time. I'd love to see him work with guys like Chad Gable and Dominic Mysterio and Braun Breaker, until eventually he runs into the World Heavyweight Champion, Gunther. Yeah, before The Rock started calling himself the final boss, Gunther was the real final boss. That's his chance to win number 17, and he falls short. I don't think he needs to win the championship, and I know some people are going to hard disagree with me on that. I don't think he needs to win the title. Then the question after that becomes, who's his final opponent going to be? If he's going all the way to December, who is his final opponent? I think Cena against Randy Orton could be the WrestleMania match. You know, for all the matches they've had, they've never had that singles match at WrestleMania. But I would not be opposed to saving Orton for the end of the year as his final opponent. You know, as part of this new media rights deal with NBCU for SmackDown, because SmackDown's coming back to USA in a few months. Thank God. The fuck away from Fox. But as part of that deal, don't forget, they're obligated to 4 annual primetime specials on NBC. They can build an entire network special around John Cena's last stand, the end of an era. They usually run Madison Square Garden for a house show the day after Christmas pretty much every year, as far back as I can remember, many, many years. The day after Christmas is a Friday next year, so maybe they bump it to Saturday and they run the Garden that weekend. MSG would be a big stage for him to close out his career. One last match, Madison Square Garden. But that's kind of the general sense of how I would book John Cena's final year. I think you have to tell those two stories. First, ending the losing streak, and then once he does, stringing together a bunch of wins to put him in position to challenge for one last world title. And you don't have to blow off the title chase story for WrestleMania. That's the other question. A lot of people are going to say, well, how do you not have him challenge for number 17 and maybe win it at WrestleMania? It's WrestleMania, right? That's the biggest WrestleMania match you could do with him. Well, I don't like it because he still has another, 9 months left to go after that. Are you really going to put the title on him, one of the titles, and have him hold it for several months? You could, I suppose, but that's not what I would do. So if you blow the story off of WrestleMania and he doesn't win the title, and you've blown off really now the last big story that you can do. And now, you've got his last match in every city and everything. It's not like, it's going to do bad business, but why blow that story off so quickly? Why blow 2 really good stories for him off in the first 3 or 4 months of the year? You got another 9 months to go. Save that for later in the year. Why not SummerSlam? Now, they have not announced the location yet, interestingly, for SummerSlam in 2025. We already know where SummerSlam is coming in 2026. It's coming to Minneapolis. Probably going to come to Indianapolis in 2027. 2 nights. We don't know yet where it's going to be next year. Here's a suggestion for you. How about Gillette Stadium, home of the New England Patriots? Right, Cena's a Massachusetts guy. Wes Newberry. Do it just before the NFL preseason begins. It could be a homecoming for John Cena. Cena versus Gunther in Foxborough for the World Heavyweight Championship. If they do that, if they build throughout the entire year into the summer for Cena, right, back to his winning ways, trying to get number 17, he goes to the main event of SummerSlam at Gillette Stadium against the real final boss, right? Against Gunther, World Heavyweight title. Man, it's hard not to see him win number 17 there. It would almost be too good to pass up. Even I would have to seriously consider giving him the win there because, it's all about those moments. It's like the Bryan Danielson thing in AEW. He won the Owen. He's getting the championship match at Wembley Stadium. I don't think he needs to beat Swerve, but if he does, I wouldn't hate it. How could I ever hate on Bryan Danielson? He's one of the greatest of all time. He gets one last big moment. I'm sure the fans would love it, but it doesn't have to happen. Bryan Danielson's legacy and his Hall of Fame status is already cemented, whether or not he wins the world title in AEW. John Cena's legacy and Hall of Fame status is already cemented whether he retires with 16 world titles or 17 world titles. All you're doing is padding their resume. The number of titles doesn't matter. It's about those moments that you create for people. A lot of times we look at these stats and we analyze them like it's a real sport, but it's not. It's entertainment. How many championships you win doesn't matter because you're not actually winning anything. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes, myself included. It's about the story that you're trying to tell. And if they tell the story just right, and it makes sense for John Cena to win number 17, then he'll win number 17. Sometimes the real story is in the chase, and it can be better when you fall just short. Where Cena's story ends up depends on how WWE chooses to tell it.